All right. So I apologize deeply for the inconvenience, first and foremost. Um, Bottom line is internet connection wasn't worth a damn tonight. So gotta come gotta come up here on the mobile device and give you part two. The show doesn't stop. So I think I left off talking about Hunter Bryant. My man um, Tones asked about Hunter Bryant, and I was giving my assessment of him. So I'll just start it all over because I don't know exactly where I left off. But Hunter Bryant, 6'2", 248-pound tight end out of Washington. 4.74 40. I thought he was going to run a lot faster than that. Was a little disappointed. And I think he plays faster than a 4.74, but 4.74 is plenty fast. Okay. Um, this is a guy, 52 catches for 825 yards and 3 touchdowns in 12 games. So, put up some really big numbers last season. He's my number 5 tight end in this year's draft. I've got him right now as a day 2 prospect, meaning he can go in the second round, he can go in the third round. He could easily go in the fourth. And my man Tones had said, could we potentially get him in the fourth round? And it's not inconceivable that he'll be available in the fourth round. So um, I talked about how the tight end position is interesting because I don't think there's a first round tight end. I don't think we're going to see a first round tight end. However, um, if we get to the second round and only one has been taken, then you could see a situation where a guy like Hunter Bryant, who I think is a third round tight end, ends up going in the fourth round. And you could see the tight end position potentially pushed back. I've said all along that the sweet spot for the tight end position in this particular draft is the third through the fifth round. So that's where you're going to see the bulk of the tight ends in this draft of value come off the board. So I've got him as a second or third round tight end. Here are his strengths. I copped him to Dwayne Allen, the ex Clemson tight end that was a second round pick of the Indianapolis Colts once upon a time. Strengths: easy, fluid mover, enough speed to threaten the seams, good on over route. So again, the theme here is he has enough speed to separate on some deeper routes up the field. Has the tools to be a dynamic route runner. So I think he can become. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he does have the tools to become a dynamic route runner. I watched him against Oregon. He broke the defender off on a nasty double move. Ended up getting open and scoring a touchdown on that particular play. Didn't have a ton of touchdowns though. That's a little disappointing. Only 3 touchdowns this past season and only 5 for his entire career. Now this is a guy that dealt with some injuries. We'll get to that here in a second, but not a massive red zone threat right now. So that's something else to consider because 2 of the 3 touchdowns came in the same game versus Oregon. So if you're looking for a guy that's going to be a difference maker potentially in the red zone, I don't know if Hunter Bryant is that right now. But can hit for chunk plays. Almost averaged 16 yards per grab in 2019. So again, this is a guy that made some humongous plays for that Washington Huskies offense in 2019, and he's shown the capability to be able to break off some big plays. So if you're looking for a guy that can stretch the field vertically and do some things in the pass game, get you some big plays, Dwayne or Hunter Bryant may be that guy for you. But to me, the downside with him is a little bit more of an issue here. Blocking is a problem as we get there. First and foremost, all right, he doesn't block, and we've been through this already with Jordan Reed. And I've seen people cop Hunter Bryant to Jordan Reed. I don't think that he is Jordan Reed, but his blocking looks like Jordan Reed's. Okay, where it's non-existent at times. Injuries are a concern with Hunter Bryant. Tore his ACL, MCL at the end of the 2017 season. So, and then he tore his meniscus before the start of the 18 season. So you're talking about a guy that's dealt with some injuries, and I think this is a guy that because of that fact, going to potentially be a guy that kind of finds his way down the um, the draft board of some teams, and then too many concentration drops for a guy that's supposed to be a pass catching tight end. Similar issue I had with Harrison Bryant. Both of these Bryants, they have issues with concentration drops. And focusing on catching the football. So that's something that we'll need to absolutely have him clean up. But got a super chat, so I'm going to take that here in a second. But the other person was Thad Moss that was asked about in the fourth round. He'll be there in the fourth round. He may even be there in the fifth round, as I mentioned earlier. Someone else had asked about him, and it's not. It wouldn't shock me if he was available in the fifth round, possibly even the sixth round. I don't think he's going to be around that late, but I definitely think he is a guy that you could see around in the fourth round. Definitely fourth round, probably fifth round. So we'll see. And I don't have a problem with Thaddeus Moss, but there are limitations to his game. And I talked about him on the Draft 101. I've talked about them earlier tonight. But he does block. He can catch the ball. I think he has the best set of hands in this draft at the tight end position. But I think you've got limitations from an athletic standpoint. And he's not the biggest guy in the world either. But that doesn't shy me away from him. His size. It's not like he's 6 feet. He's 6'2". He's fine from a height perspective. I think it's more along the lines of his athleticism, and that's why he didn't run at the combine, among other things. He knew he wasn't going to run very fast, and I think he's trying to hide that. So, um, got a super chat from Zulu Tribe 36. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. He writes, Chase Young equals body bag game in reverse. For those of you not familiar with the body bag game, Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Redskins, 1990 season. Eagles absolutely destroyed the Redskins' entire roster, it seemed like that night. Quarterback after quarterback, player after player went down. It got so bad, Bryant Mitchell had to step in as the Redskins' emergency quarterback that night. And because of all the injuries, it was dubbed the body bag game. Eagles beat the Redskins. I want to say it was a Monday night game, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken. And Redskins got their revenge in that game, though. That playoff. Um, Redskins got their revenge. So um, knocked the Eagles out of the playoffs. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Buddy Ryan got fired after that game, after the Redskins beat them in the playoffs that year. So anyway, thank you for the super chat, Zulu Tribe 36. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure, and again, I've done this earlier in the show, but I want to reiterate it here. Make sure that you go over to Instagram whenever you get a chance. Follow me on IG. That's going to be the hub for all of the draft content that is not on YouTube. Any film breakdowns are going to be done on my IG, Louie T Network _. That's the IG handle. Make sure you follow me on IG. Chase Young breakdown up on the IG page. Jordan Love breakdown on the IG page. Isaiah Simmons breakdown to come on the IG page. So make sure you go and follow me there on IG. Anyhow, um, phone lines are still open, guys. So with that being said, gonna go ahead and take this call. You're on live with your man Louie T. Who am I speaking with?
Louie, this is Calvin. How you doing?
What's going on, Calvin?
Oh, nothing much, nothing much. I hope you and your family holding up well during this corona.
Oh, we holding it down, man. We hanging in tough, man.
All right. Hey, got a question that's a layered question.
Okay.
And it's hypothetical.
Sounds good.
So the Bengals take Chase Young.
Okay.
What if you're running the Skins? What would you do?
Mm-hmm.
And by the same token, if you're not running the Skins, what do you think they would do and what they should do?
If the Bengals take Chase Young,
Uh-huh.
I am fielding all calls to try and see who wants Joe Burrow. So if because Burrow was the presumed number one pick,
Yeah.
and if he's not number one, then there is tremendous value in number two now
True.
because all the teams that didn't think they had a shot at Joe Burrow all of a sudden look up and say, "Oh my God, Joe Burrow's on the board. We can get our hands on him." And if I'm the Redskins, I'm looking to trade back and absolutely destroy somebody's draft this year and next. And so if I'm the Redskins, that would be the thought process immediately. And they went through all of this in their meetings. They've
Right.
went through the scenarios of what happens if this guy's gone, what happens if this guy's the pick, so forth and so forth. So it's not a surprise to them if that were to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if it were to happen, that would be my thought process. If I'm running the Redskins, all right, plan B, what can we get for this pick? Okay. If none of the deals that are on the table suit your needs, then I think the next thing you do is you take Joe Burrow. You take him.
Really?
You take him. And my thing is, I've heard people say that once you take a player, they lose value. I don't believe that to be the case. I say you take Joe Burrow and you find a way to move him. Someone is going to want Joe Burrow. Okay.
Right.
And whether it turns into an Eli Manning, um, uh, Philip Rivers situation where you take the player and then 3, 4 picks down the road, they take the guy you want,
Yeah.
and y'all swap, and then you get compensation that way. You figure out something, but I wouldn't allow him to still be on the board after my pick. That's
So you think Burrow would have more value than Haskins would in that scenario?
oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And really, then you go to, well, how did we evaluate, Joe Burrow? If Joe Burrow is this can't miss quarterback prospect, you got to think about it seriously, saying to yourself, we may have to move Dwayne and keep Joe Burrow. That's something else that you got to think about too.
Right.
Because again, Joe Burrow to me is elite. He's got elite properties. I think this guy's going to be an outstanding quarterback in this league. And so, if you're telling me we got a shot at him, and we can't get Young at this point because he's gone already, there are a lot of things that come into play. But I can tell you one thing that wouldn't come in play is me making a selection and Joe Burrow still being on the board after my pick.
So you wouldn't go Simmons then?
Yeah, I wouldn't go Simmons in that particular situation.
Wow. Okay. That's food for thought. Are you doing a show next Wednesday?
Yeah, well, I will be doing a Redskins report on Tuesday next week.
Okay.
Tuesday for the Redskins report. Wednesday, I will break down um, either Monday or Wednesday. I'm going to break down the secondary and the linebackers, and then my mock draft will be out at some point next week as well. I'm hoping to get my mock draft out this weekend.
Okay. The fact that you were talking about the Eagles body bag game, I remember that game. It was a Monday night,
Yes.
and it was brutal. But it seems like it seems like for some reason we've had games like that against the Eagles, from the body bag to the Monday Night Massacre.
Yeah. Oh man. There are a lot of those games that you can, and really, there's a lot of those with all the teams in the division. To be honest with you, it just seems like the ones that have come out the worst have been against the Eagles.
Absolutely.
On Monday night in particular. So, hey man, thank you.
I got one thing that'll make you laugh. A couple of weeks ago, before the shutdown got too serious, O.J. Simpson had tweeted out a video where he said that if they shut down the golf courses, I'm going to go crazy. And somebody responded to him and said, "How crazy are we talking?"
Hey, and to that he probably said, "I don't know. I'm just saying."
Yeah, that's what he said. I'm
I'm just saying. Hey, Calvin, man, I
Well,
thank
I
you for
just
calling
followed
in,
you on
man.
Instagram, so I'm going to take a look at the film breakdown.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Take care.
All right, you take care, you and your family.
Likewise.
All right, now.
Don't get me wrong. Simmons is definitely the way to go. If you're a team looking for a difference maker, and if this wasn't a Chase Young draft, that would probably be the Redskins pick at number 2. But Chase Young is a difference maker. If Young isn't there, Joe Burrow becomes the pick to me. But all right, so we got no super chats right now. Got no calls right now. So I'm gonna give you my wish list. I talked about players that I would love the Redskins to select. You've seen the thumbnail. All right, obviously, I've got about 13 guys on the thumbnail or so. I can't recall, but I've got about 4 or 5 receivers. I've got Chase Young. I've got a couple of offensive linemen behind him, and then I've got um, another 4 or 5 tight ends. So here's the thing about the my wish list. If the Redskins could just get 2 of those guys, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I think it's a really good draft. If they could come away with 3 of those guys, I think it's a great draft. Um, if they come away with 3 or more, or 4 or more, then they've knocked it out of the park, and I couldn't be more ecstatic and elated about what the Redskins have done. Um, Honestly speaking, any combination of the 2, Chase Young and you pick a guy, and I'm going to be satisfied. I put those guys on the thumbnail for a reason because I believe in all of their abilities at the next level. So if you're talking left tackle, the 2 tackles I put on the wish list are for where we're going to select. Obviously, there are better tackles in the draft, but for where the Redskins are going to be selecting in the 3rd round, these are the guys that may be available. And there's no guarantee that either one of these guys are there, but Sadiq Charles out of LSU and Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State are the 2 guys that I currently have on my wish list. Now, will either one of those guys be there? We'll see. We don't know. It's interesting to see how that kind of shakes out. But then you've got the receivers, and I told you I want a big body receiver. So if the Redskins could come away with one of those big body receivers, whether it be AGG and Antonio Gandy Golden or Michael Pittman Jr., I'd be ecstatic with that. The guy that everyone's sleeping on that I really like, and I told you this when I broke down the receivers, was Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State. So that's another guy that I would love to see the Redskins go after. And you don't have to spend I don't think you don't have to spend the 66th pick to get him. You may be able to get him at the top of the 4th round. Now, I say that, but it just depends on how the receiver position goes and how everyone else views Isaiah Hodgins. But that's another guy that I like that's got a big body. But, if you're going with a smaller receiver, Van Jefferson is a guy that I really like. And that's why he's on the art. Any of those receivers, I'd be excited. I wouldn't mind Bryant Edwards from South Carolina either. He's another guy that I like that has a little bit of size on him as well. So any of those guys would really fit that wide receiver need. You look at tight end, and I've got a number of guys up there. I've got Troutman up there. I've got Cole Kmet. I've got Devin Asiasi up there, and I believe I also have Harrison Bryant up there. And all 4 of those guys could be long gone before we get to 66. All 4 of those guys could still be on the board by the time we get to 66. That's the nature of the tight end position this year. I would love the Redskins to get their hands on a legitimate option as your tight end number 1. If they don't spend a pick on tight end at 66, I don't know the confidence level I will have on the guy that they end up getting. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes at the tight end position. And what do they value? Again, the value is all about who you feel like gives you the most bang for your pick at that particular moment. And the board is probably going to determine that for the Redskins. And it may be none of these positions that we're talking about right now. It may ultimately be safety that they think gives them the most value at 66. It may end up being guard. And we're not thinking about a guard, but they may be thinking about that position in particular. So um, I see a super chat from OJ Turner. Appreciate the super chat, OJ Turner. Really appreciate that juice. My man OJ writes, "What's good, fam? Do you think the Skins get AGG or Michael Pittman in the third round?" I just spoke about both of those guys because I believe in both of those wide receivers. And I truly believe, I firmly believe that both of those guys would be tremendous picks at 66. I would love either one of those guys at 66. I would prefer Antonio Gandy Golden because of his size and his ability to go get the 50-50 ball. However, if you're talking about all of that rolled into one package, and Michael Pittman Jr. and the bloodlines, because his dad played in the league for a number of years and was a really solid running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for many years, I think Michael Pittman gives you a lot of that. He can go up and get the ball. He's just inconsistent with his ability to go up and high point it. Whereas AGG, when the ball's in the air, he feels like it's his, and he goes and gets it. And so I'm looking for a guy in the red zone to make Dwayne Haskins right. I'm looking for a guy on 3rd and 7 to just be a physical presence. That's not necessarily Michael Pittman, although, like I said, he's shown the ability to get behind teams. He ran a 4.52 at the combine. He's got good hands. He's got a lot of things you like. I think AGG is the guy, though. If those two are both available, he's the guy that I'm more interested in. But again, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. Saw another super chat. This one from my man JP. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Greatly appreciate it. Double up, for my man JP. He says, "I am an LSU fan, so I want the Skins to draft any LSU player they can get their hands on, such as Thad Moss and Sadiq Charles. I wouldn't mind Hunter Bryant, though. I wouldn't mind Hunter Bryant just because of the aforementioned issues I've talked about. Mainly the non blocking is a problem for me because on tape he's not even trying to block. That's not something he's looking to do. And nobody is great in this draft at blocking. There are some that are better than others, but I just need to see the effort. If I see the effort, then I know we can try to coach this guy up. He may have some technique flaws and some things that he's got to clean up that'll make him a better, more proficient blocker at the next level. But guys that aren't trying, those are the guys that I want to steer clear of. And Hunter Bryant for me, and not to mention Hunter Bryant comes with some prepackaged injuries. All right, those come already in the package. I'm trying to steer clear of as many guys with injuries, pre-existing injuries as possible. So that's something else to consider with Hunter Bryant as well. Thank you for the super chat, though, JP. Got another super chat. This one from Andrew Thompson. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew Thompson. Greatly appreciated, AT, who writes, "Big body receiver. I guess you are building depth because I don't see any mid to late round receivers being better than Harmon." I disagree with that vehemently. I like Harmon a lot, and I figure him into the equation moving forward. I don't want people to think I'm down on Kelvin Harmon because I'm searching for a legitimate number 2. I just think that Kelvin Harmon, after seeing him last year and seeing some of the things he did, I think Kelvin Harmon's a very viable option in the offense. I just think he's a third option, And honestly, after watching what we saw from Steven Sims Jr. last year, or senior, I think it's senior or is it junior? What we saw from Steven Sims last year, he may turn out to be the third option, and you're still missing that number 2. I don't know if Kelvin Harmon's a legit number 2 in this league or not. I think he may be more of a third option. We'll see. And they may love Kelvin Harmon and feel like the wide receiver position isn't that big of a deal. But obviously, you saw how heavy they went after Amari Cooper. So it tells you they felt like they had a void at wide receiver. One that they were looking to fill with a big prized free agent acquisition. So if they were willing to spend that kind of coin on Amari Cooper, it tells you that they view the receiver position as being incomplete. They're missing something there. So keep that in mind as well. Anyhow, thank you for that super chat. Um, got a call. Going to go ahead and take it. Oh, missed that call, but um, that's the way I view it, and that's why I have receiver on my wish list. Um, Also, it would be nice to get a safety at some point, but you know, I'm not preoccupied with safety. If we didn't draft a single safety in this draft, I wouldn't be upset about that. I wouldn't be upset about that. But that would also tell me either the value wasn't at safety in this draft, or they felt like they liked the guys on the roster. But I see a super chat, so I'm going to grab that. This one from Tyler underscore all. I like that one. Tylenol. I like that. Tylen underscore all. Appreciate it, Tylenol. And Tylenol writes, tell me about Devin Duvernay. You know what? Devin Duvernay is a guy that I went back and watched um, 3 days ago. And because I wasn't high on Devin Duvernay, and I felt like I was doing him a disservice because I took a peek at a couple games. I wasn't thoroughly impressed. I kept it moving. And I said, there's got to be more to this guy. I know a lot of people are down on Devin Duvernay. He's not very high on a lot of these wide receiving big boards. And he's not high on mine either. However, I think I can move him up over a few guys that I have at the back end of my list. As I watch him, pure slot receiver, okay? Guy can run, though. All right, you're talking about a sub 4.4 guy. He can fly. And you saw it at the combine. I think he ran like a 4.37 at the combine, something along those lines. He can run. And when you watch him on tape, he can run. And there are some big boy catches up there as well. All right. So my thing is, I don't see him doing the shifty things that I want to see him doing more, but I think he's fully capable of that. Now, the Redskins aren't looking for a Devin Duvernay. They're not in the Devin Duvernay type of market because we have Steven Sims, and they're similar players. So I don't see the Redskins being in that kind of market. But you talk about a guy that has shown me some impressive things going and getting the football. Right now, I have Devin Duvernay as my third-rated slot receiver in this draft. All right. And honestly, I think his hands are better than KJ Hamler's. However, I don't think he's a better all-around player than KJ Hamler. So I have him behind Hamler, and I have him behind the TCU wide receiver Jalen Reagor. After those two, Devin Duvernay is my third slot receiver in this draft. Now, again, there are other receivers that can double as slots. Justin Jefferson did most of his damage at LSU in the slot. So if you're looking for a big slot and you consider Justin Jefferson a slot receiver, then obviously that pushes Duvernay back as well as the other slot receivers because he's better than all of the other guys that I mentioned. But Devin Duvernay out of Texas, strictly a slot receiver, like 5'9", 5'10", 5'9", 5'8", somewhere in that general vicinity, but fast as lightning and actually has some really good hands. So I'll make some really good catches, and I had to reassess what I thought of him moving forward. So thank you for that super chat. Greatly appreciate the super chat, Tylenol. Ray Riley with the super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Ray Riley. Greatly appreciate it. My man Ray Riley writes, how do you evaluate wide receiver Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota? So Tyler Johnson, a guy I broke down again on so a lot of y'all missed the Draft 101 show that I did with the receivers a couple of weeks ago. But Tyler Johnson was a guy that I talked about out of Minnesota. Matter of fact, I can pull up his sheet and give you a little. Matter of fact, I don't really need his sheet because I can tell you what I remember seeing on tape with him. Here's a guy that is impressive. Didn't run his 40 at the combine. I think I penciled him in for like a 4.52 through like a 4.56. something along those lines is what I had him penciled down for, and I'm gonna pull him up. I I've got him as my 14th rated wide receiver in this draft. 6'1", 206. I got him I penciled him down for 4.53 to 4.58, somewhere in there. I think is what he's going to run. I've got him as a mid to late day 2 wide receiver. So really, I'm thinking third round that he ends up going in, somewhere in there. My comp for him is Tyler Boyd. So things that I like about him, his strengths are size, toughness, catching traffic. He did a lot of that. Hands, versatility. He can play in the slot or out wide. They moved him around at Minnesota. And then his production was off the charts for the 2 years that he was, or his 3 years, I believe he was at Minnesota. But weaknesses, his speed. He didn't run at the combine. I think that was intentional. The Gophers used stack releases and motion to potentially avoid press release, because press coverage. I mean, because I don't know if he can separate from press. So they did a really good job of stack formations and motions to get him free releases. But is that a problem that I should be concerned about? That was something else I noted. Leaves a lot to be desired as a blocker. And then when he's one-on-one, can he separate and win battles consistently? That's why you saw a lot of contested catches from him on tape, because he didn't separate from man-to-man a ton. So that's something else to consider with him. But, the biggest thing that struck me was his ability to make some tough catches, but then he also had a big drop in the Iowa game. I can't let that go. But he had a big drop. But so did Jerry Jeudy versus LSU with a big drop. But then he came back on the very next play and caught the touchdown on 4th down. So Tyler Johnson, good receiver. If the Redskins drafted him, I wouldn't have a problem with him either. Another guy with some size on him. He's got some real production. I like him a lot. And I think he's not a number 1 in this league. I think he's a number 2. And if the Redskins drafted him, I'd love Tyler Johnson as a Washington Redskin. Thank you for the super chat, Ray Riley. Got another super chat. This one from Martin Matthews, my man Double M. Thank you for the super chat, Double M. Greatly appreciate it. Martin Matthews writes, "Hey, Louie, sorry for tuning in so late." Hey, no worries, man. I had technical difficulties anyway, so you didn't miss anything. He says, "But I like Quez Watkins for a sound backup at wide receiver because of his speed and decent height." So Quez Watkins is a developmental receiver to me. He's not a guy that's a finished product. None of these receivers are, for that matter. But he's not a guy that comes in polished, ready to go, right out of the packaging. We're looking for a number 2 wide receiver. Quez Watkins may ultimately turn into a number 2, 3 years down the road. He's not that right now. We're looking for a guy that can come in right now and give us production. And by the time we're ready for this ship to take off and really start moving, we want guys already producing at a high level. And I don't think Quez Watkins would be there yet. He's really raw out of Southern Miss. Does have the height that you talked about, does have the speed, as you mentioned. But he's extremely raw. Got a lot of work to do with his route running ability, which, with his speed, he can separate, but he doesn't separate with his route running at this moment. There's a lot of things he's got to fine tune with his game. His frame still needs to be filled out. I think he's a little skinny. And again, that'll happen at the next level. Quez Watkins is intriguing later in the draft. And again, if the Redskins were to select him, I would be fine with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But he's not a guy you're looking to spend a 3rd or even that 1st, 4th round pick. I'd even venture to say, that supplementary draft pick that the Redskins picked up in the 4th, I don't even know if that would be a pick you would be looking to spend on Quez Watkins at that point. Maybe at that point, but not before it. Not with the 1st, 4th round pick. I don't think you spend that on a Quez Watkins. So thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. I think that's the last super chat that we have at this moment. So I will check the phone lines. Looks like we have a call. You're on live with your man, Louie T. Who am I speaking with?
What's going on, Lou? This is man JP. How you doing, man?
What's going on, JP?
I'm good. Well, actually not very good. My cable went out, obviously, and we actually lost power a couple days ago. It's back on now, so it's been a rough go for me.
Hey, it ain't shit on TV anyway, so you ain't missing a damn thing.
Yeah, you know what is going to be on TV, though?
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I cannot
know
wait.
you're psyched for that one, man.
Yes,
I know
sir.
you're a Michael Jordan fan, but that's another question for another day.
Yep.
So, man, the draft is one more week away, and
Yep.
Chase Young will finally be ours. I can't wait to see this guy play on Sunday.
You are not the only one, man. I am anxious to finally put that to rest and get him a jersey, get him a number, and really start looking forward to seeing what this defense can really be now with a difference maker like Chase Young.
Oh yeah, the people who say that Chase Young is not a generational talent, y'all can fight me. I will literally fight each and every single one of you.
So I heard the argument. Okay, JP. So I was on Twitter. I think it was Burgundy Blog. I found one of his comments, and I think somebody added me, and I saw the comment about him pretty much saying that Chase Young isn't a generational talent, which is fine by me. Someone said they heard somewhere that he's a presidential talent, meaning comes once every 4 years, which is more apt. Whatever, at the end of the day, because this is the thing. I think we use the term generational more loosely than we once did. I think he's a generational talent because of his upside and his potential. But when you look at what Nick Bosa did last year, and you think about what Chase Young is bringing to the table, some people think that they're not that dissimilar. They're not that far apart in their talents, and I disagree. I think he's way more talented than Nick Bosa. But Bosa made such a huge difference last year that people are like, you can't say generational talent when this guy was drafted last year that made a huge impact. And then just 4 or 5 years before that, you had Khalil Mack, and 3 years before that, you had Von Miller, and so it's all in how you define generational. Look, semantics. He's a hell of a football player. End of discussion.
He is, and it makes me so happy that we're going to have him. Even though that I think he's going to be great and he's going to make an immediate impact day one. Are there maybe a small hole or two in his game that kind of worries you? For me, I thought maybe it's his hand usage because they say he's not as technically sound as the Bosa's because
Nobody
their hand usage was so good.
Nobody is. I've never seen all the prospects I've evaluated. And I don't want to act like I've been doing this for 20 years because I haven't. But I've been doing this for the last 8 years, and I've never evaluated a prospect that used their hands better than the Bosas. Either one of them. They came into the league with the best hand usage I've ever seen. And it hasn't been close. Chase Young uses his hands, and you'll see that in the breakdown that I did. But it's not on the level of the Bosas. It's not. But he uses his hands, though. He can get better with it. I think his biggest weakness right now is he just needs to develop a pass rush plan. I don't think he goes into the rep thinking, all right, I'm going to go at him hard up the field these next 2 rushes. And on the next 3rd down, I'm going to go crossover on him. Hard outside, back inside. Like, I don't think he's setting tackles up. That's the next evolution for me with him. But everything's there. Everything's there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's got it. He's got the size. Have you seen how big the guy is? I saw him. It was a few before. I think it was before this college football season. There was a video of him standing next to a couple of his Ohio State teammates. The dude looked like he was 7 feet tall in that photo, and he looked like a massive man. I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, who is this guy? Other than, as you know, here he is. So Well, a couple of things I've got. First, I've got a 7-mile mock draft that I would like to share with you and the rest of Redskins Nation.
Okay. Make it quick.
Okay, I'll make it quick as soon as I can. I just gotta pull it up. All right, hold on.
All right. Tell you what, JP, call back in, and we'll get to your 7-round mock.
No, I've got it. I've got the thing already.
Hurry up.
All right. Obviously, I have Chase Young at 2.
Mm-hmm.
For pick 66, tackle Sadiq Charles out of LSU. I've got Thad Moss at pick 108. At pick 142, I have offensive guard John Simpson.
Mm-hmm. You really think he's going to be around that late?
Oh, yeah, I do. I really do.
Okay.
Call me crazy, but I have a funny feeling that he will.
I don't think he's going to be around that long. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I've got, pick 162, I have Isaiah Hodgins, wide receiver out of Oregon State. I have a little bit of surprises in the late round. I have safety George Fuller out of Ohio State at pick 216. And for my final pick at 229, I have Florida State cornerback Stanford Samuels III.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take that one off the air. That's like an all-star mock draft. There's no way we're coming away with all those players, JP. Hey, you have a good one, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
No problem.
JP's mock draft is a pipe dream, man. It sounds good. I would love it. It would be a hell of a draft. There's no way that's going to be the case, though. Anyhow, I saw a couple super chats. Let me see if I can get to them. One from Inspector Gadget. Inspector Gadget. Hey, appreciate that super chat, Inspector Gadget. Greatly appreciate that, bruh. And then Inspector Gadget, double up, appreciate you, bruh, on the super chat, formerly known as Blackskin HTTR. Remember you. He says, your IG below. If it's not, it should be. But because I'm doing it on the mobile device, it may not be. I will put it up there. Anyway, it's definitely below the video, the part 1 to this. Either way, it's not hard to remember. It's Louie T Network _ That's the handle. Louie T Network _ No spaces. Louie T Network _ All right. Make sure you follow me on IG. All right. So, got another call. Gonna go ahead and take it. Missed that phone call. So, I'm going to drop my mock draft on Saturday. My 7-round mock. So, looking forward to dropping that. It's not going to sound anything like JP's, okay? JP had an all-star mock draft. One of the best guards in the draft we were getting him in like the 5th round. Like, no way. Late 4th, early 5th, whatever it was. He had us getting Isaiah Hodgins later in the draft. I don't think he's going to be around that late for the Redskins to select. Okay, again, I could be wrong. All right, again, I'm the same guy that last year thought that Kelvin Harmon was going to be a 3rd round pick. He went in the 6th round. So, again, because I like someone doesn't mean that everyone else around the league views that guy in the same light. And so you could easily see a scenario in which a guy like Isaiah Hodgins, who I think very highly of, is still on the board in the 5th round, and the Redskins have a shot at him. So we'll see what happens. But to reiterate, got the IG up and running, Louie T Network _ Going to have all my draft breakdowns on IG from here on out. Again, got a couple of breakdowns already up there to start it off. Chase Young being one of them. Draft Prospects 101 breakdown of Chase Young, of Jordan Love. Also got some Urban Meyer talking Chase Young and what makes him a unique player up there as well. Load up Isaiah Simmons at some point this weekend, so be on the lookout for that as well. So Louie T Network _ is the IG handle. Make sure you follow me there. Okay. Got a call coming in. Gonna go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man Louie T. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, what's up, Louie? This is Travis D, man. Got two questions for you, Louie, and I'll let you go so I can hang up and hear you answer them. Quick question. If we draft Chase, Louie, whose steps do you see going up more? Allen, Payne, Ioannidis, Kerrigan, or Sweat? Second question, and then let you go, Louie, so I can hear your response. Where do you see Cam Newton going, boss man? Love you. Love what you do. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate you, man.
Stay blessed, man.
Hey, no doubt. Likewise, Travis. All right. So his first question was, if we draft Chase Young, whose snap count then becomes elevated? I think just based off of the new alignment, the 4-3 being the base, I think you're going to see some of these guys' snap counts elevated. I think the guy that probably benefits the most. Now, if you're just talking about from their snap count a season ago to this year, I think the guy that probably sees the most elevation is Montez Sweat, going from a rookie season where he was platooning to eventually becoming a starter to now he's probably going to be penciled in as one of the starters to start the season off. I think you automatically see a uptick in his snaps. But you know what is interesting is what they decide to do with Kerrigan. Do they kick him inside on obvious passing downs? Do they reduce him into a rusher as a 3-tech and allow them to get more rushers on the field? Or do they just take him off the field altogether on third downs and have a package where they still got the big guys that can collapse the pocket? That's going to be the interesting dynamic with Ryan Kerrigan, because I think I wouldn't be shocked if Kerrigan is still your starter week 1, and they force Chase Young or they force Montez Sweat to pry that away from him, even though they're more talented than Kerrigan. It would not shock me if Kerrigan is still your starter to start out the first game of the season, and even the first few weeks until whomever is on the bench shows that he's ready to take over the mantle as the starter. But that being said, what you want to do is you want to get your best pass rushers on the field in obvious passing situations. I think Ioannidis is one of those guys. When you start talking best pass rushers on the team, especially from the interior, I think you have to consider Ioannidis as one of those guys. So I would think that Ioannidis would see an uptick in his snaps. I think this is a big season for Allen, because this is the year they find out if Allen is a guy that is a part of this process moving forward or not. Because he's been solid, but I thought last year was a bit of regression from Jonathan Allen. And I don't really feel like it was through any fault of his own necessarily, as much as it was just the staff and how everything was kind of laid out. I think this is the year we find out if Jonathan Allen is legit, because you got to make a decision on him here shortly. So I feel like you're going to see a lot more of Ioannidis and Allen. I wonder if they view Payne as a guy that can get to the quarterback. I still, you know how I feel about Daron Payne. I don't think he's a big pass rusher. So I think you see his snaps reduced in obvious passing situations. He's the guy that I think comes off the field, even though I will say this, he does a better job of collapsing the pocket than, a Jonathan Allen does. So I could see Payne being a guy that does that. But to me, when you look at your base, you're probably going to start out with Allen, Allen Payne in the interior, and Sweat Young / Kerrigan on the outside. And then as you get to your obvious passing situations, and I think that's where you start getting creative, and maybe a Kerrigan gets kicked inside. You can move Chase around because he is definitely versatile enough to kick inside. I want Chase Young one-on-one with the tackle, though. I don't want him being inside and having to worry about potentially getting double teamed by the center with the guard. I'd much rather Chase Young just get to work against the tackle. Now, if you can set it up where he gets one-on-one, meaning you blitz a guy in the opposite A gap away from Young, and that causes that center to have to go over there and he gets one on one with a guard. I take that. But again, to answer your question, I think the guy that sees the immediate uptick in his snaps is going to be Matt Ioannidis. I think he's the first beneficiary of it. And then I think as the season wears on, and Montez Sweat too. I think as the season wears on, you start to see the real rotation kind of set in, and we get a real feel for what Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera want to do with this very talented front four. So, and then your second question was, where does Cam Newton end up? I think he ends up in Los Angeles with the Chargers. That's where I think he ends up. It's a great fit. I think if they're looking to start Tyrod Taylor, that's fine. He knows the system. But you can't tell me Cam Newton isn't better than Tyrod Taylor. So I think that's the place that makes the most sense. Cam Newton in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Thank you for the phone call. Let's see. Thought I had a super chat, and I do. Right here. My man JP. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Greatly appreciate it. He says, if I get my mock right, you have to issue me a triple O rather than a double O. He says, in all seriousness, do you like Jordan Fuller and Samuels? There's something to Jordan Fuller. Samuels, I'm not as big a fan of his. But Fuller, there's a place in the league for him. Samuels has some things that you can work with, but I don't think he's a starter in this league. So Fuller, however, I think you can do some things with him. And eventually, if he's able to continue to develop, maybe he ends up being a starter down the road. But I think he's probably more so a backup as well. But I don't love either one of them, just so you know. But thank you for the super chat once again, JP. Another super chat, this one from Gary Q for the super chat, Gary Blum. Greatly appreciate it. He didn't say anything, just super chatted, and I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. So I think that as we get is the IG handle. I've got a breakdown of Chase Young currently on my IG channel or page. I've also got a breakdown of Jordan Love and more to come. The more that I can get done before the draft, the more that I will upload to my IG. But make sure you follow me on IG, as that is going to be my new hub for a lot of my draft content. So make sure you're following me on IG. So as we look at this draft period, I look at this Redskins roster, and I'm really fascinated by a lot of things. I think we're going to find out a lot about what this roster is going to look like, 2 years from now, because we still don't know. And Rivera has said this himself. He doesn't know these players. So a guy like Ryan Anderson is going to get a shot this year. And I've talked about that on various shows where Ryan Anderson is going to be in the mix. And Rivera has said numerous times he likes players with versatility. Ryan Anderson is versatile. All right. Cole Holcomb is versatile. He likes players like those guys. You're going to get to see maybe Sean Dion a little bit more this year. You're going to see a lot of players get opportunities because this is a young football team. Very young. So I think a lot of these young guys are going to get opportunities. It's going to drive us nuts sometimes. I'm a Memphis Grizzlies fan in the NBA. That team is extremely young this year. And they were a ton of fun to watch. But they also were nerve-wracking. Why? Because when you're young and dumb, you make a lot of mistakes. And you have to know that the Redskins are going to make a lot of mistakes this year. But they're going to be fun to watch because we're going to watch these guys grow and come of age right before our eyes. And that's going to be really fun to watch. And it's going to be a lot of homegrown product. And so I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these young guys. I'm looking forward to seeing who they add via the draft. And then after they've figured out which guys they're going to roll with moving forward, then I think they're going to start adding in some free agents. And then you're going to start to see this thing kind of take shape. And that's Ron's plan. Ron's plan. And I've talked about it. But I think the defense is going to lead the way initially. And that's why you draft Chase Young. That's why you continue to stockpile all that talent on the defensive side of football. Because even when you struggle offensively, if you can stop teams scoring, you can win football games. You will be in ball games. And I think that's going to be their approach while they try to figure out some things on offense. So I think that's the first thing you're going to see from the Redskins is that we're going to try to build up this defense. And see, I got a super chat. Gary Blum, thank you for the super chat once again. Double up, for my man Gary Blum, who says, what if Cincy takes Chase? Do we take Burrow? I had that super chat earlier. Someone called in, or matter of fact, it was a phone call from my man Calvin that asked that very same question. Gave me the scenario. What if Cincinnati takes Chase Young first? What do? Yes. The answer is yes. You do take. First, you try to trade out of that pick. You trade back. Desperately, you try to trade out of that pick. And you're going to have suitors because there are a lot of teams that thought there was no way in hell that Joe Burrow wasn't going to be the number one pick. So now that he is available at number 2, you're going to have a lot of teams looking to come up. So at that point, you're looking for King's ransom for the number 2 pick overall. However, you also have to consider this. What if the Redskins have a stupid high evaluation Burrow? You got to think to yourself, maybe we just upgraded the quarterback position. And maybe you take Burrow and you find a way to move Haskins. That would come into play, but again, that's not going to happen. So you don't even have to worry about that, Gary. The Bengals have used up all 3 of their 4-hour allotments on Joe Burrow, figuring out his ability on the whiteboard, and they're in love with Joe Burrow. They know that this guy is highly talented, and they know he can change their franchise. They're taking Joe Burrow number 1. I think that's been a foregone conclusion for the last 2 months. That's why you're not even hearing anyone even talk about number 1. That one isn't even up for debate. So that scenario really isn't in play. Young will be there at number 2, and I think that will be the pick for the Washington Redskins. So it is now 10:45. If we don't have any more calls, if we don't have any more super chats, we can get out of here because I know we had the abbreviated situation with the technical difficulties and the transition, but I did roughly an hour on part 1. I'm nearing an hour here on part 2. So if there isn't any more comments or any more super chats or calls, we can get out of here. I will say this, next week, be on the lookout for a ton of content as we get closer to the draft. My official 2020 mock draft, not just the Redskins 7-round mock, but my official mock draft is coming here shortly. Be on the lookout for that. My Redskins 7-round mock is coming on Saturday. So be on the lookout for that on Saturday. Plus more updates to the IG. Look for a update of that. Tomorrow we're going to do the defensive line and edge rushers in the 2020 NFL draft. So look for that. Draft 101 live. Hopefully the technical difficulties are behind us and we'll be able to get back to our regularly scheduled programming there. So also look for that tomorrow. Hopefully you'll be able to join me for that. But a lot of content coming over the next week. We'll be live here for the draft. Remember, draft party here live on the Louie T Network as always. We'll break it down and we'll have a ton of fun doing so. Look forward to doing that with you guys as well. But and also don't forget, check out the Louie T Network podcast. You guys keep talking about jerseys. I see that in the comment section. I talked about jerseys this past podcast. All right. Spent a ton of time talking about new jerseys. The Browns just released their new jerseys. Really, they're not new. They're older jerseys, but I like them nonetheless. And they're one of those classic uniforms. There isn't much you can do to that uniform anyhow. So, again, um, I don't. You guys looking for new uniforms? You're not going to get them. That's the Redskins are one of these classic uniforms that isn't going to change. You know, and I talked about that on the podcast though. So if you got some time, check out the Louie T Network podcast. That being said, AJ Souls with a super chat. Thank you for the super chat. AJ Souls says, "Can we get a who else? Could it be for me? Your man, Louie T." There you go, AJ. That one was for you. Appreciate the super chat. And thank you guys for joining me amid all of the technical difficulties. Over 200 of you still found a way to come check me out. And I really appreciate that, man. Tonight was not a typical night for the Redskins Report Live, but we made it work. And you guys are a huge part of the reason why it was able to work. So thank you guys for joining me. Remember, I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. As I mentioned to you guys, be on the lookout for a lot of content coming your way the next week plus, because it's going to be hectic from now until the draft. It's going to be hectic. A lot of content coming at you from different places. Make sure you follow me on IG. Once again, Louie T Network _. Got a breakdown of Chase Young on the Twitter on the IG page. So check that out. And more to come. So make sure you check out the IG page and make sure that you continue to tune in to the Louie T Network. I've got you guys covered. Looking forward to chopping it up with you in the near future. Like this video. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie T Network. Look forward to talking to you guys a little bit later on. You guys take care. Have a good one. Stay safe. I'll talk to you guys next time.